Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It is really, really, truly an honor to be here kicking off in the kickoff session for this symposium. It's my first one. I've never done the Latinx Symposium, but everyone that I know who has come away with really great insights and really great experiences. So it's really, truly an honor for both of us to be here. This is a co-presented panel. I'm Dr. Paul Rivera. I'll be presenting with Dr. Esther Zeledon. Before we get started, like into the meat of this session, I have a question for you, and this is going to be an interactive question. Okay, when you think of the American dream, as you think about the American dream, what words come to mind for you? Pop it in the chat for me. What comes in there for you? Don't be shy. Anything that comes to mind for you? Nice. Anything that comes to mind for you? Okay. I'm seeing, right? Education, success, immigrants, opportunity, purchasing houses in retirement, freedom in quotes, better life in future, joy, lie, it's a nightmare, right? So there's a lot of things that are associated with the American dream. Bootstraps, right? This pulling yourself up. Okay. I'm Paul Rivera. I am the child of Mexican and Salvadoran immigrants. I grew up in Los Angeles. We were a very blue collar family. So I grew up, under the hood of the car, fixing the roof with my dad, welding the plumbing, fixing appliances with my grandpa. And I remember in August one time, sweating, it's like 110 degrees. I'm re-roofing with my dad, and he says to me, "You don't like this?" He's like, "Here's the formula for a different life." He said, "Work hard, get a job, buy a house, start a family." This was the formula that he gave me. Okay. And I was little at the time. I was like 7, right? They had me working from early. I don't know how old some of you are, but when I was a kid, my favorite show was Jacques Cousteau. I don't know if you guys remember Jacques Cousteau. He was the inventor of scuba. He was this French guy, the inventor of scuba. He was an explorer, a scientist. He loved his job. He was cool under pressure, and he loved people, right? And this guy, it took me a long time to sort of internalize this, but he was my childhood hero. Like, I loved this guy. I loved what he stood for. But I was, I grew up in this Latino immigrant family. And so I followed what everyone around me said. And I pushed it. I worked hard, everybody told me, "Échale ganas, mijo," and that's what I did. And I was successful according to the metrics that I was given, right? The metrics of, getting an education, getting a job, buying a house, starting a family. But for me, it came at a huge price that just built up over time. Migraines, insomnia, depression, and a ton of physical symptoms that at the end of the day had nothing to do with my body, but with my mental state. I was perfectly healthy, but I felt like I was dying. Okay. And I realized, from a massive misalignment of what I'm calling the check marks of the American dream. Chasing those check marks was killing me. Okay. And it's an experience that we've seen repeated over and over and over again with Latinos, with immigrant communities around the world. We share so much in common, but each of us lives it a little bit differently. And for me, when I hit rock bottom with that experience and changing my life to be one much more focused on myself, my purpose, the impact that I wanted to leave in the world, I found that all of those things, my mental, my physical state, improved dramatically. And so a lot of that experience between our lived experiences as Latinos, as immigrants, and what we've seen around the world with the communities we've worked with have really shaped our experiences. Let me introduce you to Dr. Esther Zeledon. Sorry, quick switch here.
Hi, everyone. So similar to Dr. Rivera, I also was sold the American dream. So I was actually born in Nicaragua, and my family immigrated to the United States when I was small. And my parents left everything. A little different than Paul is that my parents were they were highly educated, and they were leaving prominent jobs in Nicaragua to come to the States. And so they had to go from being prominent in society, having everything. I'm not sure who relates to this type of story or has a similar immigrant story, but if you do, put it in the chat. And so they came to the States, basically my mom going to Macy's to gift wrap presents, and my dad going to school because he had to have an excuse to leave the country, and starting from zero. And so I grew up with, you're here, we left everything behind, you cannot waste this opportunity. So you need to study, 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 and education is your answer. And education alone will be the answer, that if you just work hard, you put your head down, you keep marching forward, that's it. Everything's going to magically happen to you, and you're going to have this American dream. Now, I did all those check marks. I got that full ride to Swarthmore College, PhD at UC Berkeley, did all that, even entered the workforce, climbed that ladder, broke the glass ceilings. But we all know that comes at a huge personal sacrifice, right? Along the way, I was like the only Latina woman, right? Bullied, tons of things of being the only person of color seated at tables. And it got to the point where I was, yes, in the workforce and doing all those things, but it wasn't my dream. And I remember sitting there and I hit rock bottom when I had made it to like this director role where I thought that this was going to be where I had happiness. Because, along the way I was like, well, I finished the PhD, but I still don't feel satisfied. So it must be because I haven't been married yet. And then I got married and I was like, oh, well, it's going to happen now. No, it's because I need a director position. Oh, no, that's when it's going to happen. And I hit rock bottom when I had all the check marks, but yet I found myself in all similar symptoms that Dr. Rivera explained. So when I had attained the American dream, I was miserable. But that's when I made the change and I redefined what the American dream was for myself. And I found alignment, and that's something that we're going to touch upon today, about really redefining this American dream. We saw in the chat, right? I mean, we saw some really cool, things about hope, opportunity, right? Why do we chase it? And we'll go into that. And also the negative side of it, right? This cookie cut box that we're all sold to achieve. And then these are the things that we then are seeing manifesting with all the people, right, that we're working with, right? We're in the business to change lives, to impact lives, to make a difference in society. And so we're seeing this within ourselves and with the people we serve. And so I'm going to hand it over back to Paul. We have to do some little musical chairs here. But
Hey, everybody, I'm back. Okay, let's dig a little bit deeper into the American dream, its impact, and all of these things. I love to start with definitions so that we know where we're working from and what we're talking about. Okay, when we talk about the American dream, the definition, if you look it up, Oxford Dictionary says that the American dream is the ideal by which equality of opportunity is available to any American, allowing their highest aspirations and goals to be achieved. Right? It is beautiful, and it's worth thinking about for a second. Right? One, equality of opportunity is a key tenet of the American dream. And two, that what that opportunity gives you is the opportunity to pursue your highest aspirations, right? You can see why it's called the dream, right? In concept, it should be the case that the only limitation is how high you can dream, right? The whole concept of it is that it should be able to be the case that I'm going to give you equal opportunity. All you have to do is bust your butt and you will succeed. Right. And we see this, and this is certainly the messaging that I was given. And I know that so many of us are given. And it's almost cliche in the Latino community, the whole échale ganas, mijo, because that's all you need to do, right? You need to just bust your butt and you're going to make it, right? But we know that reality isn't that way, right? We know that inequality exists. That equality of opportunity is a myth, right? There are things that stand in the way. Discrimination is real, and it poses real barriers. Okay. The second part is what we call the check marks of success, that so much that we've translated the concept of the American dream into check marks, right? It's this idea of the formula, the same thing that my dad told me, right? Are you, you're 30 and you're not married yet? You haven't hit the check mark yet. You're 35 and you don't have a house yet? I don't have a house yet. I'm more than 35, and my family thinks that I'm basically still not grown up because I don't own a house yet, right? And so that check mark of success, I haven't met it for them. The problem is that assumes that there is a one size fits all kind of a approach to happiness, that it's literally a formula, right? That this applies for everyone. What if getting married and buying a house wasn't your highest aspiration? Right? What if you have a different concept? What if you're like me and you wanted to be Jacques Cousteau and you wanted to explore the world and you wanted to see different cultures, you wanted to learn different languages, you wanted to do something really outside the box, right? What if that was your highest aspiration? That's not the way that the American dream has played out doesn't necessarily take you that way. And then the other piece is that it constrains growth. It's a fixed mindset kind of a thing, right? As soon as you have this formulaic recipe for what success looks like, you're constraining the potential. You're constraining the potential individually of the person. And then as we think about the Latino community, it's constraining us as a collective as well. It's where we get that mentality of don't make waves, keep your head down and be happy with what you have. And that's something that we've heard so many times with the Latinos that we work with, the immigrant communities that we work with, that idea that you should just be grateful for what you have. That whole thing about you're great at your highest aspiration and all of that, it's not something that is necessarily congruent with that, right? So ultimately speaking, when we talk about our talk is titled Reclaiming Latinx Voices, and a big part of what we talk about is that basically this chase for the American dream, at the end of the day, more than being something very difficult for us to achieve, more than something that's damaging our mental health, at the end of the day, is reducing the power and the scope of Latino voices. Okay. All right, let's go a little bit deeper into that. Here's the thing. Latinos buy the dream. Latinos buy the dream. As a culture, we believe in the goodness of the American dream. Here's my question for you. I have a question for you. Here's the next interactive question for you. They've done lots of surveys on people in general in the United States. What percentage of Latinos, when asked, do you believe that the American dream is within your reach? Do you believe that the American dream is within your reach? What percentage of Latinos say yes? We believe that the American dream is within our reach. Give me a number. What do you think? Any percentage? I see less than 18. What do you guys think? I found it a very surprising number. 10%, 15, 70, there's a 75, there's a huge variation, right? 80, 60. Somebody has read the stats. The stat is 60. 60% of Latinos believe that the American dream is within their reach, right? There's still a gap there, right? There's still a significant gap, but it's also a significant majority of Latinos believe that the American dream is within their reach. It's worth noting that 60% is actually higher than several other categories that are in many ways, for example, economically better off than Latinos. So it's a really fascinating thing that's happening there. That Latinos really, I don't know, it's interesting how to read this number, but so much of the literature says that this 60 is actually a very optimistic number, right? And for those of you who said 15%, the 60% is shocking, right? How do we get there? When you ask Latinos, what does it take to get there? We've said it already. We know this, right? 94% of Latinos say that to make it to the American dream, all it takes is hard work. All it takes is hard work. So that buy-in to the concept of the American dream is really, really deep. But we know that Latinos face barriers, right? We see it if we look at it from the check marks that society has put in front of us as the measures of the American dream. The Latinos aren't necessarily making it, right? Latinos earn 23% less than whites, which means for every dollar a white person makes, a Latino makes 77 cents, right? This is a key check mark of the American dream, and everything falls in line from there, right? After that, we see that, for example, Latinos are 22% less likely to own a home. Why? They're not making the income, right? This one is the one that really shocked me. Most shockingly, Latino wealth is 80% less than whites, right? And you have to think about what wealth means. Wealth is it's not your income flow. It's not how much you receive every month. It's the stock of assets that we own, property, cash, investments, 80% less than whites, right? That disparity is enormous. It means we don't save, we don't invest. We're so much more likely to live paycheck to paycheck, and we have no cushion to land on when things get hard. And we have no springboard to really propel us forward in good times. So we're stuck. This to me doesn't sound like we're making the check marks of the American dream, right? And it's certainly not in the spirit of reaching our highest aspirations, right? And so it's a contradiction. There's a lot of contradiction. And that contradiction at the end of the day is harming people, okay? Our position is that the pursuit of the American dream harms Latino mental health at the end of the day, right? I certainly saw this in my experience, and we haven't really gotten into it that much, but we have worked in communities in Latin America, in Asia, in Africa, all over the world. And we've seen that that the American dream is really a global dream, right? There are people who move to England, they move to France, they move to Australia, and it's even there, they call it the American dream, right? That they're going to another place and they face all these struggles, right? So the evidence also kind of supports this narrative, okay? One, you guys are much more expert on the concept of mental health than I am. And so as I was researching the different statistics, there were several things that stuck out, but this one really stuck out to me. 4 million Latinos every year experience a major depressive episode. This isn't people who just suffer from depression or anxiety. These are people who suffer from a major depressive episode that really impacts their quality of life, their ability to go about their day. And it's a huge number. Think about if that's the people who really hit rock bottom, how many other people there are who are experiencing similar symptoms, okay? Okay. When you ask them, what's the reason? What's the source? What's the cause? What is causing you that stress? They say the top two things, money and job, right? These are the top two things that people worry about. And these are the things that come from the American dream, right? They feel the insecurity. They feel the stress. They feel that they're not reaching that dream, and they feel like they are failing, okay? And that sentiment comes up a lot, okay? And then add to that, we know that there's an enormous treatment gap for Latinos as well. They're not seeking the help that they should get. And you ask them and they say, we don't have time, we don't have money. And then we impose a social stigma on top of it, right? Therapy is for locos, right? I'm not going to do that. It's something that we've seen so much in our own families, in our own communities. We are huge advocates of therapy and coaching, and we get so much pushback from that, right? And so what I'm hoping you see is this self-reinforcing loop, right? We have all these Latinos that are struggling to make it to the point that it's affecting their physical, their mental health. 4 million of them are essentially paralyzed each year. They're not getting the treatment, which makes it that much harder for them to struggle and try to achieve the things they're trying to achieve, right? And what's the result of that? The Latinos hit rock bottom so much harder that what you see is that not only are they depressed, but their, for example, levels of suicidal ideation are much higher and growing in recent years, right? So that's sort of our premise, right? That this chase for the check marks of the American dream is really harming the Latino community, okay? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? And at the end of the day, when you ask people, the American dream gives people hope. The American dream gives people hope. We live in the Dominican Republic, and we talk to so many people who tell us all the time, my dream is to go there. I want to go there. I want to start over. I want to start over. And they see it as something else. It's something better. It gives them hope. But it comes with so much, right? It comes with so much. There's a fixed mindset, and we mentioned that a little bit already, right? That this is who we are. We have to accept it. We can't change. We can't do better. We shouldn't expect more. We should just be grateful. It comes with this idea that all you have to do is work hard, but we don't focus enough on working smart, working efficiently, using our comparative advantage, our multilingual capacities. All of these things are not reinforced enough. And especially, I would say, especially one of the biggest things is that we as Latinos, as immigrants, are not sufficiently taught the value of networking. A lot of these soft skills really don't come in enough. And those things are hugely important, not only in making it, but sort of reaching to the next level. Okay. We focus on the timelines, and we mentioned that already a little bit, right? When are you going to get married? When are you going to buy a house? When are you going to achieve these certain check marks? And we put so much emphasis on that timeline, and we don't allow for the individuality, right? That the American dream assumes that the formula works for everyone, that it's universal, and it doesn't leave room for that individual expression. So that anxiety, that depression, all of those feelings come from a fundamental misalignment. And that misalignment is huge, because after time, that starts to grind on you. You realize that you're pushing up a stream that isn't for you, right? Individuals realizing that the pursuit of the American dream fails to match their own values, their own objectives, their own purpose. So what good is the American dream if chasing it is making Latinos fundamentally unhappy? I'm going to switch.
So, and one thing that wasn't mentioned too is that even the people that have achieved it, right, as I mentioned in my story, are necessarily then unfulfilled and empty because they were chasing what was pushed on them to chase, right? Again, this individuality piece. So where do we go from here? All right, what do we do as a community, as people that we serve these communities, that we're here to help? What do we do, or even within ourselves, right? How do we start to create this alignment? Well, we can start with lessons from international development. So as Dr. Rivera mentioned, right, we've worked all over the world, right, and this is going to relate to the individual. What we see in international development, right, when people go to communities all around the world, and I'm sure you hear this all the time, when there's like an earthquake, there's a hurricane, there's something, right? People go, oh my gosh, I want to help them. I want to help them. But people go and think already with their ideas on what they need. Or how many conversations have you had with your families or with your coworkers, like, man, that country just needs to do X, or that country just needs to overthrow their government, or this, why doesn't that country have water sanitation, right? We all go in as experts, and we think that we have the solution for someone else. We define a solution, right? And then we spend all this time and money, right? We see big international organizations do this all around the world. We see NGOs come in with their fixed solution for a certain place and certain people. But this is what happens. If you go in telling a community, oh, look, I'll give you $500,000 if you build, and you can build some wells and some water things and everything, and you bring in your filter and everything that works, and you're the expert. After 5 years, we've seen you go in there and you do an evaluation. Those filters were then used to make something else that they actually felt that they needed. It reminds me of this latrine project once that we went to go see in the Dominican Republic, Haiti border. They came in and built these beautiful latrines for this one community, right? Because they needed some bathrooms. Now the latrines were all made, and the next year they were all gone. And we go to the community and we're like, what happened? Why are the latrines gone? And they're like, well, actually, they didn't consult us in the design. They built these little like cubes with zinc. And we liked to go to the bathroom and look at the sunset. It gave us peace and calming. It really was part of our self-care routine. And they blocked us in this little box and we couldn't see anything. And then second, we told them we needed roofs before we needed the bathroom. And so we took all the zinc and put it on our roof, right? Again, this is a complete failure, because they came in, some people with really good intentions to make these latrines, to make these restrooms. And at the end, it had no impact, because at the end of the day, it was misaligned. And this is the same thing that happens to people, right? If you're trying to sell a dream, or it's passed on, I saw in the chat, right? If it's passed on by generation, or it's, tu hermana, tu tia, your parent telling you what you need to do, then what happens, right? You're following something that's not yours, and eventually it blows up, right? Or if we continue pushing this American dream, this box, right? This box that everyone needs to do, right? Either you're not obtaining it, or all of a sudden you're following something that's completely misaligned, right? So the same type of thing happens like in international development, because we don't stop and listen, right? We don't stop and listen to people's wants, to people's needs, to people's dreams, and to really, really unpack that and bring out, right, the voices, right? Bring out each of our individuality, our own voice, our own thing to it. And that, you know, and really, really celebrate that uniqueness that's in that. So how do we start, right? So we talked a lot about like the problems, the situation, you know, how this applies all around the world, but how do we start? How do we start creating that space to change that narrative? You know, that narrative that's not only going to, you know, improve mental health, but also, you know, encourage, right? You know, our Latino sister and brothers to go into therapy, coaching, right? Get the help they need to discover, you know, who they are, what it is that's going to really fulfill them and bring them this happiness. So how do we start? Well, we first start thinking about purpose, right? And purpose is a funny word, because purpose, when you translate that in Spanish, right, it's propósito, and it could have like a lot of more religious context. But purpose in English, you know, I really liked, and Dr. Rivera is going to write in the chat, but there's a definition that is in Hindi that talks more about like her purpose is like a higher, like what are you're meant to be, right? Your gift. What is the value add that you bring to this world, right? And we all have that unique voice, right? It's more than just what we love, right? We hear it a lot on this, you know, cliche, like in Instagram and social media, right? It's just go after what you love, go after your passion, right? That's the other extreme of the American dream. But the unique purpose, right, is the characteristics of that childhood dream you have, right? And those are the type of things, right, that sometimes we unpack, right, when you do like therapy sessions. But what is that characteristic of that dream? And you can have 5 people who dream to be a doctor, but the characteristics of what they saw in that doctor are all different, right? Or you can have, you know, 5 different coaches, right? And but what they admired in a coach is all completely different, you know, and like the type of legacy you and impact you want to leave in the world. You know, what have you overcome, and how did you overcome that, right? What was that process that you used to do for that? What are the how do you solve problems, right? So if you have like I love to give like people this kind of question, right? If you had $2 billion and you could solve one global problem today, you know, I would love to hear that in the chat. If you could solve one global problem today, what would that be? And then like, how would you solve that problem? Because you can have 5 people the same, say that same problem, but how they would do that is very unique to that person. So purpose, you know, focusing on purpose, it's like it helps, you know, put to that individual, you have every single person, you know, each one of us, each one of these voices that we have inside, we all have a unique way of solving problems. We all have a unique impact that we want to leave in this world, right? We all have this, right? We know inside, and we bring that out every single day. But then when we're following, right, these check marks, or in society, or have this pressure in family, so many times, you know, we silence it. We silence it. But when we actually like find that alignment, right, we have like improved like physical, mental, emotional health. And I know, for example, I did, you know, like for me, my purpose is really giving the opportunity for people to discover it, you know, to live it, and to financially be fruitful for that, right? And so I had found ways to bring that out in my life, you know, by being like a good listener and things like. But when I was actually able to construct my life where, you know, to actually do that in my everyday, you know, that is when the fulfillment came in. You know, that is when we have greater resilience to like setbacks in life, because we understand, you know, how we overcame things, and how, you know, we have longer life. And ultimately, you know, a lot of studies have shown, right, that having a sense of purpose, right, reduces procrastination, right, reduces self-doubt, you know, gives people hope, you know, a direction. And, you know, but again, it's the same type of process that, you know, I was talking about earlier with international development. We have to all stop. We have to all listen. We have to all encourage and promote each other, right? So it's one of the things that we need to create community. You know, Dr. Rivera mentioned, networking. We're not really taught about networking, but we're also not really taught about community. So much of the cultural underlying is, comparing, oh, tu prima, oh, your aunt, oh, did you know this, right? This whole comparison culture, or where people are, or even the American dream causes that wealth comparison, rather than focusing on what's my unique legacy, what's my own thing, what value do I bring, what's my gift? Because your legacy is not going to be the same as my legacy or that, and encouraging, promoting to listening what the other person wants and dreams about, and encouraging them to go after it, and creating a community of encouragement, a promotion of positivity, rather than negative voices. But even when we've seen that, even when people, okay, I have an idea now with what my purpose is, I've done some therapy, I've done some coaching, there's still a lot of things that hold people back. And now, before I go to the next slide, I want to kind of do an exercise. What do you think, even if they know what their purpose is, even if they know they stopped and listened, what do you think a major reason of why people are held back? I want to see what's coming in. Okay, yeah. Doubt, yeah. Yeah. Money, resources, yeah. Fear, yeah. Feel failure. Oh, yes. Oh, fear, failure is a huge one. Yeah. Obstacles, barriers, yeah. Pressure, yeah, yeah. Exactly.
Being told they can't do it.
And being told exactly. And I could tell you, a lot of those things that you've all written in there, I've experienced myself, the fear of losing everything you've built, right? So let's say like you decide mid-chase to the American dream to go after your purpose, then you're like, oh my God, but I built everything I have, and everyone depends on me. So I'm going to show you the next slide. These are the 4 top reasons. I owe it to my ancestors. I don't want to seem selfish. I don't want to disappoint, and I don't want to be ungrateful, right? And I know a lot of what you guys have mentioned definitely can all like fit in a sub of one of these, right? This whole cycle of I can't because, like my ancestors worked so hard and they did all this and they immigrated. I can't just like stop and go after what I want. I can't disappoint others. I have so many people that are relying on me and that need me. Or if you're like in this type of industry, right? Like us, it's also like hard, right? Because people also look up to you for support, and I don't want to be ungrateful, right? Because you've already had a better opportunity than others, and I don't want to seem selfish, right? Purpose a lot of times is mistaken for selfishness, or a lot of times individuality is mistaken for being selfish. And actually it was great, actually Dr. Rivera and I looked up a definition of individualism, and actually the definition actually means being able to bring out the strengths of other people, to identify their greatness and bring it out to the world. There's a whole other side of individualism that we don't talk about, right? That is actually super positive, that we can reframe, right? And then when we think about these 4 categories, right, what are they rooted in? And I know so many of us, we see this, right, in our communities. What are they rooted in, right? What then comes out of it, right? Perfectionism, right? Because then, hey, everyone needs us, everyone relies on us. So no way, we can't be vulnerable. We can't be vulnerable. We can't show our weakness. We can't do that, because then what? Like they need me. So how can I dare be, vulnerable? How can I dare tell people I need support and I need community? You feel like you can't. And then we all face this, right? We all have these systemic barriers we face that we make the one mistake and everyone's like, oh, Esther, you forgot a period. Oh, did you forget that? Well, we know our people we walk, our work with us can get away with everything, right? And that comes with that because we're holding all that, right? We're holding all that burden, all that thing. Then we start overthinking. Even though we know our purpose, we're like, I can't do it because I might, and as I remember on the chat, I might fail, or I can't do it because what if something goes wrong? My parents depend on me, my kids, my primos, my this. I have to make calculated steps and decisions, and then you're just like you know overthinking, and then you just freeze, right? Or the people pleasing, right? We're in these industries because we want to give back, right? And we want to make a difference, and then but sometimes that goes, we take it to the extreme of the people pleasing, where we give all of our time, right, to others, and then we want to silence it, right? We're like, you know what, we want to put our purpose on hold or go after what we want on hold, because we're like, no, we can't, because everyone else needs us first, or you know what, that'll be later, that'll be when we retire. And you see that, right, with the communities we work with, or us and ourselves, later, because we need to do this now, or we put in all of our time, right, serving. And then comes the anxiety, right? Because our bodies feel it, our bodies show the symptoms before our brain is willing to make the connection. I know all of you know this more than I do, right? And so when we have for the anxiety, right, the insomnia, the not sleeping, the spinning, all of that, because of all these other things, right? All symptoms. So these are the top sources. So what do we do with that, right? I left you with all that, we're all feeling these things, and then it kind of creates the stuck, right? You're stuck. And we see that with the community server, they get stuck, right? Or they don't want to go anymore, right, to sessions, right, to therapy coach, because they're like, that's it, I can't, I'm paralyzed. So what is the first step, in getting unstuck? What do you think? I know in the chat, I'm sure a lot of you have ideas. What do you think would be the first step of getting unstuck? What is coming? Any ideas on how we can get unstuck from that? From the people pleasing? Yes. Owning your strengths. Yes, exactly. We have this taking tiny steps. Exactly. And those are the things, right? So the pathway to alignment, right, is the plan of action that gets you there, right? So a lot of times these families in the communities, right, they freak out because we're changing this narrative, right? We're bringing out our voice, right? This whole talks by reclaiming our voice, and reclaiming our voice is scary, not just for us, but for everyone else, right, around us. But there's ways to ease it in. There's ways of creating new expectations, because that's what the American dream is. It's a type of expectation. So how do we change that to the new expectation, right? It's having these conversations, being like, hey, you know what? I'm going to stop doing, I don't know, just an example, in my case, party planning, because you know what? I have this new thing I'm working on. I'm going to be helping more people discover their purpose, and little by little having these conversations with the people close to us, so that shock, right? It's a new expectation, and the shock factor goes down, which keeps us from spinning in that circle of people pleasing, perfectionism, overthinking. Right. And then those little steps to that, right? I'm going to talk to one person today. I'm going to talk to one person next week. I'm going to talk to one person. And the valuing your strength is so key, and so many people get so stuck, in this, and when you hit rock bottom, it's really hard, right, to know what your strengths are, or to take that when you're scared of failure, to take that leap. Like, I don't even know, because my whole identity has been my job. I mean, I can tell you I've been there. I didn't know anything else other than this. And even my CV resumes would say everything I did, right? Led a team of, professionals that want to make a difference, right? Did this, did that, but it wasn't anything about who I was, right? And that's why it's so important, that $2 billion question on how you would do it. That how is unique to you. Or even today, right? You could reach out to 5 of your champions. And I mean, your champions, it might not even be family, 5 of your closest friends or colleagues that really, really know you. Ask them, why are you my friend? Why do you like working with me? And we like to give this to the communities in that, because sometimes they feel that I don't have, I can give you an example. I've worked with other amazing Latina PhDs. When I ask them, what's your strength? They're like, I don't know. I just have a PhD. I'm like, no, that's not true. You're so much more than that, right? But sometimes they need just that exercise of reaching out to the people that are the closest to them. Tell them, why are you my friend? Why do you like being around me? Why do you come to me? And those text messages they get back, always a little bit in there, is about their added value, right? A little bit of their strength has in there, their uniqueness, and how they help them solve problems, right? It's not just solving problems in your job, it's also you're solving your problems in your everyday. And that alone helps them get just that little push, right? The little push outside your fear, I'm more than my title, or I'm more than my chasing that check, where I am in that check mark, right? And seeing beyond that point, seeing beyond of I've been always this person, right? It's not that you were always that person. And it's just now I can bring that out little by little, right? So the action plan is key, right? It's like setting new expectations, making those small steps, getting closer, building more community, knowing who your value is, right? All the other things that people brought in, and start building out that plan to bring out your voice, to bring out your authentic self. And this is something that we can help, right? All the people that we serve to do that. And, and we may not be the right fit, but then as we create community, as we create champions with each other, we can help people and pair them to people that could be a great fit for them, right? We're all unique in the way we serve our communities. And as we start building community, we can be like, hey, you know what? I might not be a great fit for you, but Carla is, Maria is, right? And so we can help then each other be aligned in the way we make a difference and how we make a difference for others. So, but let's say you're on that track, right? You're on that pathway and you're getting there, but then you know what? All of us know life happens, right? We see that with everyone we work with. We say with ourselves, life happens, right? Parents get sick, kids get sick, siblings, financial, recession, anything happens, right? And I like to think about this like a marathon, right? So when you're running and you start to get thirsty or hungry, what is the worst thing that you can do? Say it in the chat. What's the worst thing that you can do? Oh, what's the worst thing that you can do? What does it say? Panic. Yeah, panic. Okay, great.
Stop taking care of yourself.
Stop taking care of yourself. Yeah.
Stop moving.
Stop moving. Exactly. It's the worst thing, right? The worst thing, if you stop full circle and you start to panic and you do that, right? It's so much harder to start again. So much harder, right? The best thing to do is just slow down your pace, right? Slow it down, and then you can pick it up later, right? Slow it down, take deep breaths. And then when you're ready to pick up speed again, you pick up speed, right? Eat what you need to eat, the glucose, whatever, and then keep going. It's the same in life, right? If we stop completely, then, it's so much harder to get on that path again. And so that whole exercise of like, what have you overcome and how? We all see this, right? Well, you keep overcoming, or we see people keep overcoming, they're going to keep overcoming, right? These are repeated things in our life. I mean, that's what's great about seeking help, is that you start to see your own patterns and you start to see, oh man, I'm always overcoming that. That's a theme. Like, I'll give you a theme in mind. I always stay in things too long, whether relationships, jobs. I already know it's misaligned. I keep staying in it because I don't want to, like, again, what we all talk about, disappoint everything else. So what's the lesson there? The minute I feel misalignment, okay, it's time to go when I'm winning, instead of going when things have already like gotten sour, right? And those are like an example of like lesson that people do, right? And instead of, we always end up using our crisis toolkit, right, of how we get out of it only when we're at the bottom, right? We have a crisis, and then when we hit rock bottom is when we start, little by little using it, right? But then we've stopped, like in our marathon. Instead, right, if we can slow our pace down, and we have already intentionally scheduled in our calendar in our lives the things that helped us before. So for me, right, like I said, like, I spent too much time getting into things because I didn't slow down and really pay attention to how I was feeling. Am I having anxiety? How do I feel in this? And right now in this relationship, in this role, is it still aligned with me? Let me every quarter analyze. That's intentionally scheduled. So when, once I learned that, from then on, I know when to get out of things, whether not to get out of things, but move on, right, to the next chapter, whether it's friendships or opportunities or jobs or anything. I know now because I take that time and it's intentionally scheduled in there, my tools to get through. So all of us have this unique resilience toolkit that again goes back to bringing out our voice, because we see so much things out there of like this is how the secret of getting through, this is how this, right? But we all have a unique toolkit that we've used in crises that we need to incorporate and help others incorporate in their everyday, right? Building strategies, celebrating wins along the ways, so we don't do that hard stop. And again, we're going to emphasize here that community matters, right? If you're talking about this thing, right, with your champions, with community, right, you're not doing it alone, right? The person's going to know, hey, this is what happens to you. I'm going to keep an eye out on you. Like I'm going to keep an eye on you. Like for me, when I share it with my champions around me, they know, hey, Esther, is this still aligned with you? Because I've shared, hey, don't let me stay in something too long. So they keep an eye out. And this is what's important about community, right? People who really care. And nowadays, with the digital world, communities everywhere. I remember when I made that big leap and I changed, to out of a job into a different job. I didn't know anybody because my whole life had been one identity. And I was like, how am I going to do this? Nobody around me has ever done it. What am I going to do? I went online and I found a community in Australia on the other side of the world. And then they all became my friends, this community of women. So like there's there's communities everywhere. There's a community for everything, whether you're into rescue dogs, whether you want to do entrepreneurship, whether you're into art, whether anything, there's a community everywhere. But I think there's so much of it that we place on the Latinx community that it's like only rely on your family. And I'm not saying that family is not important, but we all have unique purpose, interests, and everything that may not exist, in our neighborhood. It may not exist in the neighborhoods that people we support, Like Paul and I have been able to connect people from Zimbabwe all the way to Paraguay because they had similar ideas and similar things that they were the only groups in their country moving forward. But then we connected them to each other. It would seem like an unlikely pair, but through that, they got like support to grow what they wanted to grow. So those are the type of things like, we can encourage us, as we think about like bring our voices, bring our community, we can encourage that with one another that, hey, you are not alone. You don't have to suffer in silence, and that your voice matters. And there's so many people in the world that want to hear your voice, that want to support you, that want to do things similar to you. There's not a one size fit all. So the new Latinx stream, the one that, that would be the new American dream, new Latinx stream would enable individuals to uplift, their community through purpose-driven actions and the resilience to persevere on their path. This should be our new American dream. This is what we should be striving for, right? It's not about metrics that are cookie cutter, right? This is about, celebrating our uniqueness, celebrating our purpose-driven actions, but still that community component, still bringing in that hope and still bringing that resilience, and if all of us could actually do this, right? All of us really doing that. And imagine how much impact we could have in the world, how much power we could have as a group, and now I'll pass it back to Paul.
You guys, how do I follow that? She's so good. How do I follow that? Come on. So the other part of the title of our talk, aside from reclaiming Latinx voices, the other part of our title is reclaiming Latinx voices, right? It's infusing ourselves with authenticity, right? When you ask yourself, what do you have when you have a purpose-driven life and you have created your actions that align with that purpose, and you see yourself moving towards the thing that you see as your higher place, what you have inside is authenticity. And that authenticity is so important. When you have that structure where you're driven by purpose, fueled by alignment, when you have techniques and strategies that sustain you when life gets real, when you have a community that you've built that supports you, that authenticity is enormous, right? Somebody mentioned earlier that, for example, imposter syndrome is something that really hits when you're doing a lot of these things. Imposter syndrome has very little space when you are fully immersed in that authenticity, right? And so that's what we're really looking for, sort of that resurgence of authenticity. And authenticity comes with voice. too, right? We're looking for being able, not only as individuals, but as a community, to create that uplift, to create that growth that we haven't seen. All of those things that come with that authentic voice that comes from us, that comes from inside of us, and that comes from being able to express it and to move forward on it. So that's really where we see this dream moving forward. We really believe that this is a huge path towards not only, and as somebody, it's been mentioned in the chat a couple of times, we've seen this and we've applied so much of this to the Latinx community, but we've also worked all over the world. And one of the things that really unites us, I think, as humans, is that all of us have a particular purpose. All of us have a way that we see the world and our vision for how we impact the world. And that's something that is a shared common human experience. So much of what we've talked about today really applies beyond the Latino experience, and something that I think really holds a lot of promise. This idea of getting away from a closed, rigid version of the American dream to something that really is about uplift, about purpose driven. So with that, I thank you so very much. If you're interested at all in connecting with us, there's our email addresses, Esther and Paul at BIAC Change. We have an Instagram channel. You can look us up both on LinkedIn, and just to show you the passion that we have for this particular topic, we have a book that is just recently released called Creating Your Limitless Life. And so, that's the extension of this argument. Once you live with authenticity and you bask in that purpose, that feeling of being limitless is tremendous, and something that we try to share with people. And the other part of our title, I don't know if you can see it on the picture there, but it has crossed out Chasing the American Dream. So with that, I thank you so very much for your time and attention. We have a few minutes still, and I don't know how we're doing the chat moderation. I don't know if we have a moderator. Do I just call on you all? I can't really see. Do you see who's got their hands up? Let's see. Let's see. All right. I'm not seeing the hands. If somebody wants to, if you guys want to just come off of mute and shoot some questions at us, we're happy to take them.
Dr. Pepe has their hand up.
Oh.
That was a mistake.
No worries. Anybody else? This was really great. I really appreciate you guys spending this time with us to hear our story, and really participating. I see a question in the chat, what it says.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to share the screen. So we had to log in. So we now we've completely, part of our transformation is that now we've completely transitioned to more of the coaching side, really helping people do that type of action planning, discovering their purpose, making it happen, and really getting the aha, and really focused on the high achiever immigrant population that's trying to make that impact to the world, right? And so that is where our purpose is aligned, right? Mine is about identifying people's purpose and making it a reality for them, right? Because a big part of it is being able to also financially sustain from your purpose, right? So having that full action plan to make it happen. And we work with people all around the world, because again, American Dream is not just, in the United States, right? We work with people in Zimbabwe and Paraguay, in Dominican Republic and Haiti. And you start to see that the immigrant experience is shared, and then our big population is the Latinx population in the United States. And then Paul, if I don't know what you want to say, it's also very aligned with you, because your purpose is all about belonging.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing. Two things I want to just to comment on that. One of the things that you probably understood from my childhood story is that even within my own family, I never really felt like I belonged. I always felt like the outsider. So for me, that struggle for purpose and the authenticity was something that was really, really tough and really important in terms of helping me feel like I belonged and that I had a place in the world. The other thing that I wanted to talk about really quick, sort of the practical side. One of the things that we work on a lot, for example, the extension of helping people find their purpose and that alignment. We work a lot in mentoring students and young professionals, and it changes fundamentally the way that people talk about themselves. If you think about, for example, what you write in a cover letter applying for a job, or what you say in an interview, is so very different and so much more powerful when you say it from that lens of authenticity. When you're able to say, you know, my purpose is to advance these kinds of things, and this is what I can bring to the organization, and these are my strengths, and this is what I build on, and these are the environments where I thrive. Really, really powerful. Are there questions there?
There is a question from Trice Taylor. Absolutely. You know, actually,
what's the question?
The question is, how can we build trust in the community around mental health services and outreach? Can we discuss what could build confidence trust? Yes. I want to put a note here sorry. Thank you so much for that. Because I had mispronounced some, so apologies. It's really small on my screen.
Treese,
yeah. Sorry about that. Not my fault. I think there's a lot of power in the social media space. So I mean, we can share that. I found it really scary to go on social media at first, because I can tell you how many of my family members were like looking at my page going, why are you talking about those things? And one post, we got 350 hateful comments from the Latinx community. And that's a reality that we knew that we would face opening a social media page to talk about these things. But the thing is, it's again about reclaiming our voice, right? If this is something important to us, we need to go out there and talk about it. We need to change this narrative. You know, so we're on Instagram, we talk about these things. We talk about how, you know, you need to, like, you know, coaching, you need to go to therapy, that we need to normalize it. It's not for locals, it's for you. You need to understand, like, everything you went through. If you want a different life and you want to change things, we want to change the narrative, this stuff has to be normalized. So we talk about how we share our lives. We talk about how our kids do, you know, they go to therapy weekly. We go to therapy, you know, even part of coaching to unpack, you know, as professionals, we have to also go ourselves, right? And to be able to have outlets. And so we talk about these things to normalize. I mean, I think we need to talk about it. We need to normalize it as much as we can as individuals, and as a community, spread this voice. You know, through us, we found that social media is that. And even when people reach out to us for coaching, we still constantly also say this needs to be in collaboration with therapy, right? Because if someone has only come to coaching and they haven't done that therapy piece, right, you need both. You need both. You need to understand your past to be able then to do action planning for your future, right? They all go hand in hand. And to get that support. So, I mean, I think there's other ways that people can also, other than social media, or social media is not for you. There's ways to talk about it within your circles, talk about it within your family, talk about it with your friends. And as much as we can do to normalize this type of support, and also encourage people that maybe the first person you meet, that's what I was talking about, that we have to also create community. First person you meet may not be aligned with you, you know, but it's okay. It's kind of like shopping for a dress, right? Not every dress is going to fit perfect. And you might need to find the dress that fits you well and that you feel comfortable with. And so it's just like finding the right person to support you is that way too, you know? And so we also need to be like encouraging folks, hey, it's normal if like the first person you meet may not be the right fit, but there's all these other people that are there to support you in other ways. So I hope that helped answer.
Thanks, everyone, so very much. It was such an honor to be able to sort of kick this off to this great symposium. So I hope you guys have a really, really great couple of days. And please reach out if you have any questions or anything.
We love feedback. So we're welcome to hearing it. So thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Take care.